Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. You know, I've done a bunch of videos on retrieves for different techniques, and I've gotten really positive feedback from all of you out there that it's something that you really enjoy. It's something that a lot of the experienced anglers may be either using to confer that the way they're fishing a bait is a good, productive way. It may be something for an experienced angler where they're saying, hey, I've never tried that single retrieve, so they're trying that and incorporating that into their arsenal. And it's a way for those of you who have no experience with certain techniques to grab a bait and say, here are 3 or 4 different retrieve styles that will generate bites for you. Because sometimes, you know, even with me, occasionally I'll go find a bait in a bait shop and be like, I've never seen this before. And it's so unconventional that I don't even really know how to use it. So you take it and you have to experiment with it. It may take you a few times to figure out what's the best way to fish with a bait. And realistically, if I don't catch a fish on a bait, you know, pretty quickly, I'm gonna end up potentially not using that bait again. So it's really important for an individual and for a lure maker to let people know how to use their baits, because if they're not using them correctly right off the bat and they don't catch fish, chances are good that they may not buy any more of that product. And it's something that I get questions on all the time, is how do I go about using a certain bait? So that's what we're going to talk about today, which is one of my favorite baits. And this is just a swim bait. This is a Dirty Jigs Matt Steffen guppy head, the 3/0 size with a 3.8 Berkley power bait power swimmer. A fantastic setup for a swim bait. So I want to talk about some of my favorite swim bait retrieves. And this is something that, honestly, swim baits can be used in so many different manners that it really is all across the board. You can almost not use a swim bait in the wrong manner. It is one of the best baits to throw, but there are things that you can do with it to generate additional bites. And there's things that you can do with it that, in my opinion, can hurt you on the water as well. So I'm going to talk about specifically swim baits with a jig head style in it, an exposed jig head. You know, I'm not going to talk about necessarily how to throw a hollow belly that's got a line through treble on it. Because there's just so many different ways you can rig a swim bait. But just a classic swim bait style rigging, I've got roughly 4 different retrieves that really will generate a lot of additional strikes for you and make your guppy head start looking like that one, where you just have beaten it up and abused it with fish catches and pounding it on the bottom and doing the things that you're supposed to do to generate strikes. So I'm going to head over to the water. We're going to show you some retrieves. If you guys do have retrieve styles that you want me to show you, or different baits that you want me to show you how I work them in a retrieve manner, please leave that in the comment section. Let's head down to the water. All right, so we've got here our guppy Dirty Jigs Matt Steffen guppy head paired up with a Berkley power bait power swimmer 3.8. And I'm going to show you a couple of my basic retrieves. First and foremost, guys, you know, on the channel I talk about how a straight retrieve is not necessarily what you want to do, but in this case with a swim bait, it absolutely can be a very, very good fish catching tool. Specifically if you're talking about cold water fishing or fishing for suspended fish, I really do like a straight retrieve. In cold water, you want to keep that bait in front of the fish for as long as possible. A lot of times that's a snail's pace retrieve, just like this. So even though I say it in the past with a lot of my other videos, you do not want to do just a straight retrieve. With a swim bait, it definitely can be a good producer under the right circumstances. So that's something that I want to point out first and foremost. So a straight retrieve will catch you fish. It's probably the #1 bait where a straight retrieve can be the most productive. So the second way I like to fish it is a little bit different. I let the bait go to the bottom, and this is where you do want to generate some speed. So I let it go to the bottom, give it a bunch of hard cranks, let it fall back. Now when it falls back, I'm not letting it fall on complete slack line. I want to keep a nice, what I call controlled slack in my line. So that bow in my line, I'm picking up as it's falling, because that's when the majority of the bites will come. This is a great technique to use if you're fishing ledges, or if you're out on some deep humps, or you're fishing any sort of steep break. You throw it out, let it hit the bottom, burn it, a couple reel handles, let it fall. You're really letting it pendulum is what it is. So you're just gonna crank it several times, let it fall, keep a tight line, relatively tight line, a controlled slack, so that you're going to feel those bites, because they're almost always gonna come when that happens. But that is a great technique for generating deep water bites. If you're throwing a bigger swim bait, and all of these techniques will work on various size swim baits from your 2.8 size all the way up to a 7.8. But if you're fishing deeper, this is a great way to fish. Burn it, let it fall, burn it, let it fall. So if you're doing that, that is a great way to fish. The third way I like to retrieve a bait is, again, in a burn style fashion. This is something I love to do if I'm fishing on the flats for smallmouth or spotted bass. Throw it out, burn it about a quarter of the way back, kill it quick, burn it, kill it, burn it, kill it. You're really just moving the bait 10 or 15 feet at a time. You kill it for a second, burn it, kill it. A lot of times you'll see those bass shark behind it, and as soon as you kill it, that's when they'll eat it. It's like they cannot resist it. It's something that I think very often most people throwing a swim bait do not do. Burn it, kill it, burn it, kill it, burn it, kill it. You're really doing this with a lighter headed swim bait. You want your bait to be within a couple feet of the surface, and this will draw fish up. If you're fishing a clear water fishery, it'll draw fish up from as deep as 20 feet. Or if you're fishing a shallow 3-foot flat, the fish that are up there will come over and eat it just as well. That's one of my absolute favorite ways to fish it. I will tell you what, guys, when you get bit that way, you better be holding onto your rod and reel tight, because they will hit it and just rip the rod right out of your hand. So that's a third way. The fourth way is kind of a mix of the first two. And it's gonna be hard to demonstrate here just because I'm shallower and I'm probably gonna get stuck doing this, but it's what I call a pendulum. You throw it out, you have a light head, you just engage your reel, and you're picking up the slack line as it's falling to the bottom. You're really trying to let your bait fall on like a 45-degree bank. It's penduluming to the bottom. So what you're trying to do by picking that line up is keep your bait falling horizontal. You don't necessarily want it falling like that, and you don't want it falling like that. You want it to be falling at a horizontal pace through the water column. It's a very slow way to fish, but it works wonders if you're fishing, say, around docks. So you throw it out, engage the reel, and you're letting your bait just pendulum down at a real slow pace. It's when I like to throw like an 1/8 ounce head like this, a small swim bait, and you're just penduluming it down over cover. So if you're fishing floating docks that are over a lot of water, if you've got submerged trees, you know, where you might be fishing 20 feet down and the trees standing in 80 feet of water, it's a great way to fish it. And it's really just all about throwing it out and engaging your reel and letting it fall. You might pick up a little bit of slack, but you're really just letting it fall to the bottom or to the depth that you're fishing. At which point, and I did just get stuck there, at which point what I'll do is I will reel up my slack and then let it pendulum again. So it's just a process of pendulum, reel it back up to a certain depth, pendulum back down. It's one of the best ways to go about generating strikes with small swim baits. Unfortunately, on a river like I'm on here, where we've got some wood and rock out there, you get stuck a lot doing that, but it's really a good way to approach it. So those are the 4 ways I like to do it. Nothing super complicated, but there's a few things there that definitely will help you. You know, anytime you're doing like the straight retrieve, it's not bad to work in a stop. It's not bad to work in a little change in speed. Those are things that can generate those additional strikes, but you don't actually have to do that nearly as much with a swim bait, because the boot tail is drawing those fish in. And a lot of times you're fishing for fish that are keyed in on bait fish, whether that's shad, alewife, herring, cisco, and those fish know they have to react to that bait once they see it. So guys, pick up a swim bait, go out and fish with one of these 4 retrieves. I can assure you, you will catch a pile of fish. And don't let me say, or don't let me tell you either, that you can only fish it in this manner. Like I said before, a swim bait is one of the most versatile baits out there. You can fish on a drop shot, you can fish it on a Tokyo rig, you can fish it on a wobble head, you can fish it in so many different fashions too, from a rigging technique style. It's because it catches fish. So grab yourself some swim baits, some Matt Steffen dirty jig guppy heads, head out to your lake. I'm gonna lose one here. And yeah, stay tuned. We'll have another video coming out tomorrow. Bye, guppy. You're free. Swim freely.